last week we said a lot about so we came to teams last week, and all that we're doing were a managed team. So we learned how to create teams from the Teams Admin Center, how to add users, how to add members, how to create channels from teams, how to archive teams. I think we gave an assignment to see where our archived team saved. Then we came to converting team from private team to public, and then also now confirm that you cannot convert private channels to standard channels. Neither can you convert um, standard channel to private channel, but you could do that in terms of teams by just coming here, and then you go to, I think there should be a way we can set our teams, and then get into changing the type, right into from public to, okay, this is an archive team, that's why I cannot find that there. So for this, I click on here, I click on edits, and then I'll be able to change the privacy from private to public. But for channel, we couldn't do that. So what we just discovered right now is that the team that is archived, the privacy cannot be changed, because until you unarchive it before you can go ahead and do that. So for the other ones that are not archived, you can actually change the privacy by clicking on edit. You can also change the display name. You can put a description. You can go to the permissions, mentions, guest permissions, and so on, right? So so for today we are going to be looking at Teams settings. So inside of Teams there are a lot, right? For Team settings, what do you think is going to be in Team setting? So in Team settings, right? It's from here you manage the email integration, the file storage for all teams in your organization. So this is about suggest field can appear, manage the way the teams handle suggested and trending feed. So I always tell people that most of these things are not all that very inviting and useful part of teams. So the one very important thing to take away from team setting, one very, very, very important thing to take away before we even look at other things is that we look at just hold on. There's a particular feature here that I'm looking for. Once I'm able to get it, I will let you know. And it is one of it is the shared channel. So if you want guide users to your designated support requests, no, for the designated support request, external collaboration assistance, as it might not be obvious that inviting external users to share channel is not publication. B2B collaboration has been allowed by both organizations. So here is an important setting, right? So for here, you need to take care of, you see that shared channel option for you to bring in people from outside of the organization. Scope directory search. This is my major point here that I was looking for. I'll take time to explain this because it is important for you to understand this scope directory search here, this one. This means that, so if you set what is called information barrier policy, what is information barrier policy? Let's say you have people in HR departments, right? HR departments, and you don't want them to be able to collaborate with people in finance for some reason, right? Or you want them to be able to collaborate with finance, right? But you have a department called budgeting, budget, right? Budgets. And you don't want these people to communicate with these people. So what happened? You want these people to be able to communicate with HR. So what is this saying? You have communication to go between finance. You don't want communication to go between finance and budgets, but you want communication to be successful between budget and HR, finance and HR. So the only solution about this is The only solution about this is for you to do what is called information barrier policy. Information barrier policy, IBP. So if you do information barrier policy from the compliance admin center between these two departments, that there should be a barrier in conversation. So what happens is that people from finance will not be able to communicate with people in budget. People in budgeting will not also be able to communicate with people in finance. So it's a two-way thing. If you are blocking someone from communicating here, you must also block someone from communicating here. That's the only way it can work. So if you do this, it's going to work across platforms. If you include Teams, the only way that this can work in Teams is that you must toggle on the information barrier, I mean the scope directory search, right? You must turn on this thing. If you don't turn on this, then your information barrier policy is not going to work in Teams for you. So when you come to team settings, one of the major consideration is to make sure that this one is turned on if information barrier policy is set up before it can take effect in Teams. Unfortunately, people, whether they are overexcited or not, they come to toggle this on, whether there is information barrier policy or not. And do you know the implication when you do this? The implication is that the implication of doing that is that if users now start searching for somebody in Teams, let's say they go to the search bar and they start looking for Joseph, for example, it will say user not found. User not found because you have turned on the scope directory search. Most time we'll tell people, oh, the reason why you are having this issue is because the scope directory search is turned on. Can you turn off the scope directory search? And sometimes the scope directory search is turned off, but when you search for people in Teams, let me see if I can just quickly go to Teams. But when you search for people in Teams, what you have is that you will see that users not found, right? If you are seeing that issue, so what we do most time is that, okay, if this is happening and you check and confirm that the scope directory search is turned off and yet you are still having this issue, so what you can do is you now say, okay, turn this. So what happens is that, for example, you are trying to look for somebody in the organization, you are sure of typing the person's email address correctly, but to be telling you this, to be telling you no user found, right? Something like this. It will at the end of the day not bring in anybody. And you are very sure that the user is in your organization, right? I just wanted to search through, but if it's not searching through, but this is what I mean. Type in the user's email address here, and then it is not bringing out, yeah, we couldn't find any match result for this person. So that is even when you type in correctly the email address of the user and still experiences this issue, what the issue is likely pointing to is that the scope directory search is turned on. And if you don't have information barrier policy set up in your organization, then there will be no need to toggle on scope directory search. So, but if scope directory search is turned off and I'm still experiencing this issue, what I tell clients most time is, okay, can you turn this on, toggle this on, save it, right? And leave it for 2 hours, come back and toggle it off and save it again. So that if there's any setting that scope directory set will probably in one way or the other have, then you can reset that from the very beginning. So because scope directory set actually control how users can find and communicate with other people in their organization through a scope directory search as and see company and department detail in people search suggested for multi-tenant organization. So you must take note of this what's it called? This when you anytime you see team setting, one thing that should be coming to your head is scope directory search is very important. Why this other part that you have here is speaking to the control access behavior for Surface Hub. So these are actually equipment related settings. So require a secondary form of authentication to access meeting content. So all these are device related settings, but one of the primary settings there is what I have shown you. So select the storage and the sharing options that you want to be able to when it comes to sharing files, so whether you want to allow Citrix, Dropbox, or Google Drive anytime. So these are just basic settings, right, that allow file sharing across other. So these ones are other cloud service storage providers, right? Citrix is doing that. Dropbox is one, Box is another one. Google Drive, of course, is very common. Then Chains is also another one. So email integration. With email integration, the content of email sent to the Teams channel will also appear in Teams conversation. I think this setting, somebody asked me a question about this recently. User can send email to Teams channel. You want to turn it on, then accept channel email from this SMTP domain. So you can decide to specify a domain that you want to accept. But I think this heading here is very important. With email integration, the contents of email sent to a Teams channel will also appear in Teams conversation. So you can send, every Teams channel has its own email address. So if you had, let me duplicate this and let's see. So that's to let you, this is just to let you know that for every team that you have here, for example, you will see this team. You can see this email address. So this is the email address of so if you send an email to this email address, it's going to get delivered to the Teams channel, right? It's going to deliver to the general Teams channel. But for every channel that you present, you create, it's also going to have its own email address. So there is an email address. So that's what this is also talking about. Talking about user can send emails to channel email address. It's toggled on by default. So tagging, team owner can change, team owner can control how tagging are used. So tag can be added to one or multiple team members and using @mention by anyone on the team to notify people who are assigned that tag or conversation. So like I mentioned, one of the primary settings you need to be aware of when it comes to team setting, and I will still emphasize it, is the scope directory search. But this is one of those critical things that will bring you back to make some settings here. Otherwise, most times you don't have issues with the other one, but this is like a major point when it comes to troubleshooting issues. So I will dwell a lot in terms of policy here, right? So Teams is all about policy, and policy is how you control what. In short, everything in Teams is centered around policy. Since you see Teams policy, right? So if you come to say meetings, for example, you will see Teams meeting policy. You even have meeting template policy. You have meeting policy. Can you see it here? Meeting policies, meeting template policies. If you come to message, you see messaging policies. If you come to voice, you see where is it? Calling policy. You also see emergency policy. You have shared calling policy. You have voice routing policies. You have voicemail policies. You have a lot, right? So that is just to tell you that most of the things that you'll be dealing with, like most of the things you need to be strong at, is policy. And the first policy we'll be dealing with in Teams is the Teams policy. So you need to know that for every policy, there's one policy that will always come with it, and it is the global org-wide default policy. So this is called the default policy. Is a follow come policy, and you cannot delete this policy. That's one thing to mention, but you can modify the impact of the policy, or you can scope the policy to a certain people, right? You can make changes within it, but you cannot delete that policy. But before I go on, for example, if I come to meeting policies now, you will see that I have a default org-wide policy, which is always the first policy, and it is with the lowest priority. So if I come to check events policy, right, here, you also see that I will have global default policy. If I come to messaging policy, you're also going to see the global default policy. So if there's nothing you want to know about policy, you must at least know that for every policy, you would always have the default policy in there. So that's a policy that operates as usual, and then you now have the do I say the liberty to create policy added to that custom, and then scope it to the people that you want the policy to be applied to. So when I say scope it, it means that the people that you want to be under that policy. So you can create multiple policies within a policy setting, right? So, but now we are going to be dwelling much on the team's policy. So we've seen team setting and we've seen scope directory search as one of those major things. So we are looking at um, teams policy, right? So for teams policy, you could have this. So if you check this now, you see that the delete option is grayed out, right? But if I select the second policy here, you can see that the delete option is activated. What this means is that I can delete this policy. Are you sure you want to delete the ABC of cloud policy? Yes. If you delete this policy, it will be removed. Now, the question is that what is now going to be the state of those that the policy was assigned to? These people who were initially in this policy will automatically now inherit or bear the global org-wide default policy if you have deleted the policy from them. I mean, the direct assigned policy to them. So how do you know this is the default policy, right? So if you click on the default policy, you have the settings in there. You can toggle them, you can change settings and save them, but you cannot delete the policy. You can modify it. That's what I mean. So create private channel. You want people to be able to create private channel, right? You can say yes. Then create shared channel. Do you want shared channel to be allowed to be created in your environment? Yes. Invite external users to shared channel. Do you want people to be able to invite it to your shared channel? You want to say yes or no? And then join external channel. Do you want your users to be able to join external channel? You can say yes or no. So the point is that if you want this to only be assigned to a segment of people, you may just want to maybe assign the policy to a group, right? You can assign them to user. You can bulk on assign user. So if you want to assign to user, you can search for the users and then have them on the policy, right? So I think you need to put 3 characters before it can search for users for you. You see, you can add these people to the policy and decide to click on apply, and then you click on yes. But one thing is, I may just want it that, okay, this policy is good, it can be applied to people, but I want to create a policy by myself and I want to call it no shared channel. So it's always good that you put it there to say this is to be, or this is assigned. This is assigned to users who should not, who should not be allowed to create or join teams or shared channels. So the reason why you want to put this is because you want it that other administrators who are within the firm when they see this, they should know. So you are going to say create shared channel is no. Invite external user to shared channel is also no. Okay. Then you want to say external shared channel. So join external shared channel is no. Create no. Invite no. Join no. So you cannot apply it. So now when this policy is created, you can see the description, right? So if another administrator comes to look at the policy, it sees the description this way. So, okay, this is what it does. So if you want to assign that policy to a user, you can now click on here, and then you can duplicate the policy if you want to. If you want to add user to the policy, you can assign to users, right? And then you can search no search channel, no shared channel. That is the name of the policy. Then it's saying that you can assign policies to user. So you may just want to search for maybe my lab guy and say, okay, lab rat is going to be under that policy. So it's not going to be able to create channel, and then it's not going to be able to assign no channel policy to the user. Might take some time to take effect. So usually this is very important. So usually this takes around 2 hours. And then if it is not within 2 hours, at least at most rather within 24 hours, it should be ready. And also note that if you want to change the policy of the user to, it could take a bit of time, and that's why PowerShell is very important. And we are going to be looking at PowerShell in the course of these conversations as well. So there's an option I'm seeing there, manage. What is bulk unassigned? So unassigned policy from user in bulk. So when you assign unassigned policy that were directly assigned to individual users, the next effective policy will be defined by the president. If no group policy applies, the user will be assigned global policy. Or if a group policy applies, the user will be assigned to the group policy. So if you are putting the policy on a group, then it will transcend down to the group. But then if you are assigning it to a user, then it's just going to be on the user. And if you remove that policy from a user, so you can actually have a user in a group policy, and then you also have that user in an individual policy. So the individual policy takes precedence over the group policy, and the group policy takes precedence over the global policy. So the global policy is the weakest policy. And if, for example, a user is removed from all the policies, it will definitely be putting on the global policy. So for Teams policies, you don't have a limit of how many you can create. It's counting to already. You can decide to create another policy now and give it a description, give it a name, join external shared channel. Depends on what you're looking for. If you want this to be turned on, you can turn it on, give it a name, and then you can just save it, right? Because this is discover private SIM. So a lot of people don't want you to be able to discover private SIM. So by default, it's turned off. But if you say, okay, that you want that to be on, you can just give it a name that describes it, private SIM, right? So even in global policy, this is not turned on. So you may want to just turn it on and apply to users that should have that policy. Why this is for creating individual policy. There's another one here called group policy. So you can also add, right? So select policy. So you can create a policy and rank it, right, to a group to determine whether they should be able to and just determine the rank, right? Usually, the lower the rank, the easier it is for users to. So rank selection is if you want to select the priority of the policy for the effectiveness of anyone in the selected group, right? So if you are giving this to a group, right? I know that I have a group here in this tenants. I call, is it marketing? I can check, but let me just check. Let me just think if I can remember very well. or is it sales? If I use sales and I still don't get it, I'm just going to look up the group. Yeah. So this is sales. So if I'm creating this sales policy now, what it means is that I can decide which policy I'm assigning to this, right? I may want to say it is the no shared channel policy that is going to be assigned to the user, and I can determine the priority, right? So if I'm putting it at 0, it means that this policy is going to be like the primary policy, and it's going to be affecting everyone within, right? So there, we couldn't assign shared sales policy. If it continued to happen, contact Microsoft support. So there's probably, let me check with that. Let me check with the priority I'm giving it. Let me leave it at priority 1 and save it and see. So I'm selecting the policy, maybe no shared channel, and I'm doing this. I'm doing this. So yeah, that's saved. So I think it was as a result of my priority. Priority 0 is not allowed, and that's possibly why I had that issue that I had earlier. So, but what does it actually mean, really? You have group policy assignments, and then you have manage policy, which is like policy assigned to an individual, while the group policy is like a policy assigned to a group. And because you are in that group, the policy is going to impact you. So if you have individual policy assigned to a user, and then the user is also, if you have an individual policy on the user, the priority is going to be priority 0. Then if you have the user in this group right now, it's going to be priority 2. So let's say, for example, I also have that policy. Let me say something. The policy of no shared channel. I also want to now add another policy, and then I want to apply it to maybe mark. I don't know if I have other things. Let me just search for sales. There's something I need to understand here. I think when I search for sales, I have to. So sales licensing group. Let's say I'm adding this sales licensing group, and again, I'm having another user who was in sales and is also in market in sales licensing group, right? So if I leave it this way, you can see that the priority, I can't, okay, I need to now select the policy I want to also check. If I'm giving this policy to another user, and maybe I put the priority as true. So let's apply it and see. So what happens now is that if a user is in sales and is in this one, the policy in sales will first be applied to the user, and then this one. So as the ranking increases, so the effectiveness also increases. So what it means is that this one, if a user is here and here, so the user is going to assume the policy here. Let's say, for example, this particular one, let me just see it now. Let's say this particular one, I want to remove this policy, and I'm giving it, I think the best way to explain this is for me to bring the second policy, and then just look for my sales, and then put it at this sales license, and I'm putting the policy I created to be discover private channel, and I'm putting the priority as 2, right? If I'm putting this priority as 2 now, so what this means is that if I have a user who is both in sales group and sales license group, the policy that will take effect on him is a sales, right? Is a sales, and then this one will not take effect. But if a user is only in sales license group, then the policy in sales license group is going to be assigned to the user, right? But in all of this, what is evaluated first is the direct policy that you assign on a user. So direct policy that you assign to a user takes the higher priority, 0, right? And then the policy that is assigned to the group takes the next precedence, right? So, but if a user is by default in global org-wide default policy, and then you go and assign discover private channel policy on the user will take discover private channel policy, And even if he's in sales group where no shared channel policy is assigned to him, he's going to take the policy that is directly assigned to him, so long the policy is not the global policy. But if the user is by default on global policy and you assign a policy to the group that the user is, the policy assigned to the group will take effect because the only policy the user had was the global org-wide default policy, which is the weakest policy. So otherwise, the user will pick up any custom policy assigned to it against the global policy. Now, one point to stress here is that if, for example, you delete the policy that is assigned to the user directly, or you unassign that license, that policy from the user, then the user takes next the group policy assignment. Then if the group policy assignment is perhaps deleted or unassigned from that user before you go and take the global org-wide default policy. So if I want to emphasize more on that, if you have questions, you can drop on the chat or you can write it down, ask after this explanation. In terms of priority, if global org-wide policy, if the global policy, how do I put now, global org-wide, the default, right? So let's do it this way. Let's do default policy, right? Let's do default as the default policy. If it's assigned to a user, and then that same user is the user A, is also now assigned policy of a group, right? Since the user is in default policy, it is the group policy that will take precedence. But if a policy, a custom policy, is assigned to the user A directly, okay? If a policy is assigned to, let's say, none as a name for a custom policy is this is assigned to the user A, this one will take the precedence 0. So it will take effect over what is in group policy, right? And then the org-wide default policy is going to be the weakest. So situation where the direct policy that is assigned to the user is removed, the user will just come back and take the group policy, right? But situation where there was no group policy assigned to the user comes straight into the global org-wide default policy. So the situation where the user was in global org-wide default policy and the only policy assigned to the group policy assigned to the policy assigned to the group where the user is a member is the only existing policy, then the user is definitely going to be on that policy assigned to him. So just note that in order of hierarchy, then global default org-wide policy is the least, while followed by group policy assigned to group, and then followed by the policy assigned to member directly. So this is the highest, followed by this, and this is the least. So I don't want to overstretch this so that somebody does not get confused, but just know that it is individual that is stronger than group, and it is group that is stronger than global org-wide default policy. Teams template. So for Teams templates, how do I explain this? Let me come here and just show you something. If I come to Teams right now, did I hide anything from here? I'm supposed to see option to create Teams, right? Teams is just hiding from me. I can't really tell why. Maybe I've done something. There's not supposed to be. Who is this user? Oh, no, I should see Teams, right? What's this? Let me refresh and see. I'm wondering why Teams disappeared for me. Your status is set to do not disturb. Change settings. That's not the reason, right? I will really find out why I can't see Teams. But when you want to create a team, I think I'll quickly do that from another tenant so that I can show what we have to show. So I'm just trying to do that from here. So in a minute it should be up. All right, so this is team, right? When you are creating a team, you have the option to come to plus up here, and you see create or join team. Create is also, you don't have permission to create a team. What's this? Why is everything trying to turn against us today? I'm supposed to have option to create a team. What's going on? So join or create. This is create a team here now. How will you try to fade out? So you can see that you see the option here, more create options, right? And then you can see templates. Yeah, this is what I was trying to talk about. So I will take this again just in case anyone is confused. So back to teams, right? Then click to create team. Here you have create. Then you have more team create option. You have all these options to create from the template, right? Which is scratch if you want to create from the beginning. If you have Teams template, then this is just for test, like I created the Teams template policy. Then if you want to do like a project management, you can just pick a template and use, then manage an event, then onboarding for HRO, maybe employee onboarding, then organize help desk, then incident response, crisis management, manage a store, then bank branch, then you have patient care for those in hospitals, then you have quality and so if, for example, if you pick up this, what it's going to do is that it's going to create a general channel for you. And inside, I mean, it's going to create like 6 different channels for you. One is general, one is announcement, one is module, one is rounds, one is staffing, one is training. And then the applications that are going to be in such is approvers, inspection, list, planner, shift, wiki, and so on. So if you are fine with it, what it just means is that it will just help you bring up like a team that has numerous channels that speaks to that project and numerous applications that you are likely going to use in terms of approvals, inspection, the list, the planner for plan project, the shift, just so you can have a schedule, then the wiki for research. So if you are fine, you just click on this, give it a name, and then hit on it. Simple, right? So that's what this place is telling you to do. I'm still worried why I cannot see Teams here. I'm just going to give it one reset, one refresh, and see what's happening. So yeah, okay, so I'll just wait for it and see. I still cannot see Teams at all, so it's worrisome, honestly. But I'll try and find why that is happening. So, but where we are right now is where you talk about the Teams template. So, how do you this is Teams policy, Teams template here. How do you see Teams template? So there are some policies that, so for you, the reason why you see all those manage these, onboarding these, all of this is because like all those crisis management you saw in the other tenant that I brought up, patient care, hospital, quality. So when you are creating a team, you have all these templates to pick from. So if you want to create one for yourself, you can decide to you haven't created custom template for before, your first template may take longer. Okay, no problem. So if you look at this right now, you will really see that you can start from scratch by using existing theme, right? Or use an existing template. So create a new template, use an existing template, depends on what you're looking for. Start with an existing template. So just so you can add like stuff to it. So let's say we want to start with an existing template. So we just click on next, right? So it's showing what do you want your template to look like. I want it to look like, let me see if I can create multiple, I can pick multiple, I cannot. So let's just say that I want to use crisis communication. Oh no, I want to use hospital as part of my. So what this means, I want to use everything inside hospital and then modify it to suit the template I want to create. So I'll do next, and then I will change the hospital copyright. So I can decide to rename it, and then for the next point, I'm going to do. I just want to say maybe I want to call it clinic clinic templates, right? If I want to do clinic templates, I can give a description, can give more like long description. I can choose the locale you are using to create the templates. Of course, there are different locale or languages there. So you can do next, and this is where you want to now look at what is in hospital. So if you want to add apps to it, if you want to say no, I don't want to just stop at general announcements, or if, for example, I want to remove, I don't think I should be able to remove general, but I should be able to remove like announcement. Can you see? Able to remove announcements, then compile, it's fine. So if I want to add channel to it, I can decide to add channel to say custom, then I just do this, then add an application. So if I need app to add to this, I can just go to what's the name of this app? Maybe it is. Let me see if I will see Asana. Yeah, so I'm bringing up Asana, and let's say I want to bring up Jira. See Jira. I think it's Jira like this. I want to bring up Jira data center to be on that group. If I want to bring up Whiteboard, which is a native application, I can just put it. And then once I'm fine, I can apply. So you can see that in the list of the application has increased now. Then I can decide to also now say, okay, I want to add some other stuff, right? I can add them. And once I'm done with that setting, I'm going to click on submit. So what this means is that if I'm creating a team from if I'm creating a team, I should be able to see clinic. I should be able to see clinic templates and use it to create a team. So good thing is that I can delete this because I created this. Let's see if I can delete this. I cannot delete this because they are default templates that come with team. So but for the ones I create, I can really hide or bring them out. So I can create templates that are going to be useful globally, that is throughout my organization. But here is where I will need, so for me to be able to now customize what policy that should be allowed to be used. So I was able to create the policy, but right now the only policy that is visible is the global org-wide default policy, right? So which will allow us to see all the templates. Now, if I want to limit the templates, let's say, for example, I want only people in HR to be able to see. So when people in HR want to create a team, they must only see employee onboarding, right? I need to create a new Teams template policy. And for me to be able to create a new Teams template policy, I must be licensed for Teams Premium before I can go ahead. So Teams template policy lets you create and set up policies that control what template people in your organization can see, right? So you can use global org-wide default policy and customize it or create a new custom policy. Now, if you want to pick up policies, like from the policy template that we created, right? So mean that, okay, suppose somebody in social department should only be able to use these policies, then you can actually create it. But unfortunately, before you can create those policies, you would need to be Microsoft Teams Premium license assigned for you to be able to do that. So for us to move on today, I'm just going to have us discuss these 2 points, right? And then we can call it a day. So Teams update policy is actually something that I would say that if you come to look at it, they are only use new teams. So for Teams update policy, I would say they are used to manage pre-release, right? Pre-release or preview features. If you want people in your organization to be able to, so that let's say you wanted that when Microsoft releases new updates in Teams, you only want people in IT to be able to see those policies, and if they are fine before you can release or allow that to go to your other users in your organization, you can decide to um, add a policy and then try to say, okay, you want it that. So for this one, since March 31st, classic Teams has been retired since March, right? So for example, you still want it that people in your organization should only be using their Teams Classic. You can say, okay, use new Teams policy, you say not enabled. So what this means is that you want it that everybody in your organization should be using the classic Teams. You don't want them to be able to use the new Teams. So you can create the policy and just call it classic Teams. Classic Teams. Classic Teams is the old classic Teams. Maybe because people are complaining too much about the new Teams. You want them to only be able to use the classic Teams. So you can say, okay, let them be on classic Teams only. Then also you want to say that show Teams preview. You want to say no. You want to put it off. So what are you doing? Let me just explain this. What happens here is that this policy that you have here, you can decide to now assign it to a group that you can decide to now assign it to a group that is like an org-wide group. Okay. You can now say, okay, you search for all employees. So there should be a group that an organization will have that is called all employee, all company, right? So if you do this, that means that everybody in your organization, right, are going to be on classic Teams, right? Now I want to apply it. So what this is going to do is that everybody in this organization is going to be using classic Teams, and also that when Microsoft releases updates, right? I've said for updates that are released, right, that user can opt in. Do you want users to say, okay, I want to use it, or on for users in current channel? So if you set the current channel, users to be in current channel, you want them or on for everyone. So what is this actually doing? There are types of update rings that are happening in M365, which at this point I don't want us to go like right deep into. So for people in current channel is that as Microsoft is releasing the updates, they are going to be getting the monthly updates for themselves, right? Then you want to say, okay, they should just be getting that update as it is coming. Or do you want users to say, okay, if I want the update, I want to jump into it? Or you want to just allow everybody to just be picking updates? For that policy, I turned it off. That means that nobody will be able to receive updates, right? Then, or even up into updates. Now, what happens next is that I want to now create another policy and say, okay, that it should be IT policy. I know I have IT template there. I will not say IT policy. So what am I saying for the update policy? I'm saying that it should be on for everyone, right? Look at it. But this time, I am just creating it this way, on for everyone. Then for Teams, I want to say new template by default, or Microsoft control. That's one of the best things I can just do. Microsoft control, and I will apply, say yes. So what happens is that if, for example, I now have a group that is in IT, I can now decide to say, okay, that group in IT, I want you to be able to see updates, receive it as it is coming from Microsoft, but everybody in the organization who is in the all company group will just naturally pick up the all company policy, right? Which is the classic policy that we just created. Now, if I'm putting this now, so two things I can do is if I don't have a lot of people in IT, I can decide to just come to that IT policy and I say, I assign user. I can now say, okay, Paul should be in this policy, right? I can say Paul should be in this policy. No, I'm just writing the wrong thing. Should be in this policy. Then because Benga is in this tenant, I can say, okay, Benga should be in this policy. Then, excuse me, then Joseph should be in this policy. Joseph should be in this policy. I hope this is it. So what happened now is that if I apply this policy, though everybody here is in the global policy, but because I have directly assigned the IT policy to those guys, they will override what we have in this group policy, all company, because that policy was assigned to them directly. So what happens now is everyone in the organization will not be able to see new teams, will not be able to hop in, and will not be able to get updates from Microsoft until the IT unit, which is the three people I've selected, are able to confirm that the update is good. Okay, so this is a policy assigned to a group, and those policies are assigned to individual. So if I look at IT policy, for example, now, and I click on it, if I click on this IT policy and I go to assign user, so there's a place I will, okay, so what I would do is if I come to manage users, right? Okay, user is still down, we've not gotten there, but for example, if I come to manage users and I go to my account, no, let me just use Paul since it's going to be like one user in this tenant, right? So if I come to this user and then I'm going to look for Teams update policy. I'm going to look for Teams update policy. If I come to policies here, and then I'm coming down to look for Teams update policy. Update policy, you can see that it's bearing IT policy. But for others, you can really see that they are in global org-wide default policy, right? So this is how to see all the policies assigned to a user, though we are going to come here next week. But I just want to let you know that the Teams update policy, the Teams update policy speaks to how you want users to pick up updates from Microsoft when they release their updates. That's one. And secondly, if they should be able to hop into those updates by themselves, or they should not, they should just be stuck. And also that is where you determine whether they should be able to use the Teams what's it called? The new Teams experience, if you want them to be in the classic team. So when you hear the word classic, classic, classic in Microsoft, it's talking about old version, while the new is new in case, I mean, in terms of new. Now, when you talk about the Teams upgrade policy, Teams upgrade policy really is not useful anymore. I can tell you that, because this was useful when Skype for Business and Teams were in coexistence, but now everybody has been forced to using Teams only. So then there were Skype for Business, there were Meeting First, there were lots, and people were concentrating on those. So, but for today, these are no longer all that useful. Then this is app preference that you want to use for to join your Skype for Business meeting. If you want to use Skype, or if you want to use Skype for Business, and all of that. But this, I'm not sure how this is very useful. But just before we wrap up, I want to just do a summary of teams, right? Teams, here you have manage teams, and manage teams is where you create teams, right? And then you create channels, you add member to teams, you promote people to members, I mean, to demote people to members or promote people to owners of a team. Try to look at the settings that you want to put in place for a team to make sure that people are able to do this or not able to do that. Then the team settings, one of the things that stand out there is the scope directory search. And I explain scope directory search to you to mean that this means that you want people to be limited or restricted in the extent at which they search for people in the organization. And I mentioned that that is one of the major settings that you have to put into consideration when you are setting up what is called information barrier policy. So once information barrier policy is set up, for you to be able to have that feature occurring or happening in Teams, you must turn on the scope directory search. But instances where people cannot search for people in your organization, even though you are not on an information barrier policy, you should check the scope directory search. And if the scope directory search is saying that no, that is turned off, and yet you have limitation in your search, then you should toggle that on, leave it for 2 hours, toggle it back on, save it, allow another 2 hours, and try searching for people, because that has caused like a lot of problems for people in the past. So from there, we went on to Teams policy, and I mentioned that you have three categories: the global policy, the group policy assignment, and the policy assigned to individual. And group policy, global org-wide policy is the weakest policy, and then followed by the group policy assignment, and then next is the weakest is global policy. The stronger than global policy is the group policy assignment, and there's one stronger than group policy assignment is the policy directly assigned on a user. Therefore, if a group policy is assigned to a user and the group policy is removed, the user will adopt the policy of the global policy. For the instances where a user has a direct policy assignment and then it has group policy assignment, then the group policy assignment take precedence. And when you remove the direct policy on the user goes next to pick up the group policy assignments. All right. But instances where there is no group policy assignment assigned on the user and you remove the individual policy from the user picks up the global policy by default. And I mentioned that all the groups, all the policies in the Teams Admin Center have one policy called the global org-wide default policy for all the policy, and that global org-wide default policy is the weakest policy, and it cannot be deleted but can be modified. So we also have the Teams template policy. I will say that from here you can, Teams templates, right? So you can create templates that users see when they are trying to create Teams, okay? And then one thing to also mention is that if you create the Teams templates policy or the Teams templates, right? For you to be able to create Teams template policy, you must have what is called the Teams Premium license. As upon that Teams Premium license, that you can create Teams template policy and choose who policy is going to be available for or not. Then we talk about the Teams upgrade policy, and I say specifically that this actually speaks about the coexistence mode between the Skype for Business Online and Teams. But for today, we now have Teams only users. So the Teams update policy is not like a very strong deal as of today. So this will be all that we can handle for today's episode. And if you have questions, it is time for you to raise up your hands and ask those questions. Then we can call it a day. Yeah, let's see.